let me explain why. Alright, so when you do like a lot of productive things over and over, you know, at first, whether it be weightlifting, running, or reading, at first it's just really annoying. It's, you know, sometimes it can even be painful. Like, especially with weightlifting and running. Anything physical, that's usually where you get that painful aspect in it. But eventually, it just becomes really, really boring once you get good at it, okay? And if you can learn to just endure through that boredom, it's basically a cheat code to success, okay? Because what's stopping you from just like reading for 8 hours a day? You know, I'm not saying I read for 8 hours a day. I read for maybe 1 hour a day. But you know, what's stopping you from doing that? It's really, really boring, okay? And maybe it's not boring. You know, reading, it can be intellectually stimulating, or, you know, however you want to put it. But it doesn't compare to YouTube, Netflix, video games, TikTok, anything like that, right? It's really understimulating compared to that. And what stops people from having these really productive days is most of the time it's just really boring. But if you can learn to endure that boredom, if you can learn to get through that boredom, and, you know, usually just like ignore it. It's kind of hard to ignore boredom, but you know what I mean. Just kind of sit through it, whatever, like thug it out, you know what I mean? But if you can learn to do that, it's basically a cheat code to success, because every single productive thing, whether it be cleaning, reading, weightlifting, running, you know, at a certain point, these things get really, really boring. Okay, sure, you're doing something, you're focused on a task, you're driven, right? But it's really understimulating compared to like a lot of modern day things, like entertainment, you know, really understimulating compared to that. And people usually, like, a lot of people, they don't not read because it's painful or because it takes work or something. They just don't do it because it's boring. But if you get through that if you get through that boredom, if you can endure it, then, you know, you can have days where you get like, you know, 6-8 hours of productivity in, right? With like, you know, like actual productivity, not like watching Andrew Tate shorts or some crap like that. But yeah, I could go on and on, but I'd basically just be repeating myself. I'll give you an example. Like, to get to, you know, this little trail I'm at right now, I had to run here. From my house, it was only 1 mile, but it's still kind of boring. You know, it's like, it's not like running down like an actual nature trail like this. You know, this can actually be pretty enjoyable. But when you're running down like a street with cars and you're running on concrete, there's a bunch of houses that aren't very well kept, it's like, that's just really boring. But if you can learn to just thug that out, then you can do a lot of stuff. If you can just run at a pace that's real easy, like, the only thing that's stopping you from running a marathon is just because it's really boring. You know what I mean? You know, obviously, you know, I'm not saying it's easy to run a marathon. Maybe not a marathon, but let's say just like a half marathon, 10 miles or something. What's stopping you from being like a really good runner, right? It can just be kind of boring. You know, I remember in track, the 1600, a lot of people just said, like, they asked me, like, do I get bored while I'm running? Because, like, a 100 meter, 200 meter, you know, it's like you're sprinting the whole time. It's high octane, it's super fast, whatever. 800 meter, 400 meter, they go by fast. But 1600, it's like, yeah, it is pretty boring actually. But I was so good at it because I was willing to go through that boredom. Obviously, it wasn't as simple as that. I had a lot of mental strength and all that. But you get the point. If you can endure through a bunch of boredom, it's basically a cheat code to success, because every productive thing that you're gonna do is probably gonna be boring. And it's like, again, that's what actually stops people, is boredom. Okay, it's not pain. You know, maybe with weightlifting or running, like anything physical, sure. Maybe they don't do it because it's painful. But something like reading, and I think that's even more important than weightlifting or running, is learning. Everything you do is based off what you know. So to know more is always a great thing. It's like reading or learning anything like that, the only thing stopping people is boredom. If you can learn to thug it out, well, you can become pretty intelligent just like that. And that's what I got.